The gravel crunched under my shoes as I stood there alone, watching the red glow of my son Derek's taillights shrink into the endless Arizona night. The desert wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of creosote and dust, whispering against my skin like it knew secrets I hadn't shared in decades. My overnight bag lay discarded beside me, a cheap black duffel that held everything I supposedly needed now that I was on my own. I was Enzo Rossi, 68 years old, and exactly 1 hour earlier we had buried my wife Maria after 45 years of marriage. Derek hadn't said much during the service, but when he offered to drive me home afterward, I should have known better. "You're on your own now, Dad," he'd said, voice flat and final as he pulled over onto this forgotten stretch of road outside Phoenix.
No explanation.
No apology. Just the slam of the passenger door and the spray of gravel as he sped away. I pulled my phone from my pocket, the screen lighting up my face in the growing dark. One call. That's all it took. "Miguel. It's Enzo. Initiate the 30-day notice for the Maple Grove property. Standard eviction protocol." My property manager didn't ask questions. He never did. The house Derek and his family had called home for 6 years, the one with the big backyard, the updated kitchen, the mortgage payments disguised as rent checks made out to Desert Horizon Management, was mine. Derek paid $2,750 every month to a company he thought was some faceless corporation. He had no idea the man he just abandoned controlled his entire suburban life. I stood there for a long time, letting the silence settle. The stars were coming out, sharp and indifferent above the saguaros. Part of me wanted to feel rage, the hot kind that burns through everything. But mostly, it was a heavy sadness. The kind that comes when you realize the child you sacrificed foresees you as an inconvenience. Derek sold insurance policies downtown. Nice BMW. Country club memberships for networking. Private tutors for his daughter Emma. Meanwhile, I drove a 15-year-old pickup with 280,000 miles, shopped the Aldi clearance section, and fixed my own leaky faucets. He thought that made me a failure. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that those calloused hands had built something lasting. The funeral had been small. Maria's viewing 2 days prior was where it started to crack. Derek stood beside me as the director presented the final bill, $9,200 for everything. I pulled out my checkbook without hesitation. "Dad," Derek hissed, loud enough for the other mourners to glance over. "You can't keep up this act forever. It's embarrassing." Embarrassing. That word had haunted us for years. My accent, thicker when I was tired. My work shirts still smelling faintly of sawdust no matter how many times I washed them. The way I sometimes mixed up verb tenses after a long day speaking Spanish with my crews or Italian on calls with old cousins back in Naples. At the viewing, I'd overheard him with his colleagues from the insurance firm.
"Yeah.
My old man did construction his whole life. Never climbed any ladders except the literal ones. We're covering costs because..."
"Well,
you know." I pretended not to hear, focusing instead on Maria's peaceful face in the casket. But the words landed anyway.
20 years of them.
"Last Thanksgiving." Derek corrected my pronunciation in front of his in-laws.
"Dad."
"It's I went, not I go. You've been here since '78. Awkward chuckles around the table. I smiled and said, "Still learning, I guess." What they didn't know was I spoke fluent Italian, solid Spanish for dealing with subcontractors, and precise English when it counted on property closings, tenant negotiations, bank calls. 3 weeks earlier, at Emma's school recital, Derek brought his regional manager. "This is my father Enzo. Retired construction guy." Past tense. Like I was already gone. The manager shook my hand politely, but his eyes drifted. "What kind of work did you do?" "Commercial builds, mostly. Some multifamily housing," I replied. Derek cut in fast. He's on fixed income now. You know how it is. Fixed income. Sure. Social Security, $1,380 monthly. Union pension, $960. But the real income, the $2,750 from Derek's own house, plus $4,200 average for my other 10 properties, plus dividends from reinvested profits, never entered the conversation. Derek never asked. I began walking slowly along the road shoulder, phone flashlight guiding me. A pickup eventually passed, and the driver offered a ride back toward the city lights. I accepted, sitting quietly as the man chatted about the heat. My mind drifted back to 1978. Ellis Island processing felt like another lifetime. $180 in my pocket. A cousin's address in Phoenix scribbled on a napkin. No English. First job, $4.75 an hour mixing concrete on a 7th Street apartment build. 12-hour shifts.
6 days a week.
Blistered hands. Aching back. But I noticed something. Americans wasted materials like it was free. Overordered concrete dumped. Wrong size lumber tossed. Excess wiring scrapped. I asked the foreman if I could haul away the discards. He laughed.
Sure. Kid.
Good luck. Every weekend I'd load my borrowed truck, store it in the $95 per month garage apartment I shared. Within months, I was selling surplus to other sites at discount. Small margins, but cash. In a year, down payment on a fixer-upper duplex for $26,000. Rented both units. Cover mortgage plus $65 profit monthly. That was the pattern for 47 years. Buy distressed. Repair myself after hours. Rent responsibly.
Repeat.
Derek watched me do it as a kid but never asked details. When he graduated high school and announced college plans, he sneered. I'm not spending my life as a landlord, Dad. That's for people who couldn't make it in real life. I paid his Arizona State tuition quietly, $94,000 total over 4 years, from an education trust I'd started the day he was born. He thought scholarships covered it. When Maria's cancer treatments exceeded Medicare, $48,000 out of pocket, I covered it from rental equity lines without a word. Derek assumed I was scraping by. He never asked. Back in my small paid-off house that night, the one I'd bought in 1986 for $52,000 and owned free and clear, I sat at the kitchen table reviewing files. 11 properties besides Derek's. Total equity north of $2.1 million. P.O. box for statements. Desert Horizon Management handled day-to-day, so tenants never knew my face. I stared at the Maple Grove deed. Purchased 6 years ago. 2 months before Derek and Brooke moved in. Anonymous owner. Perfect tenant otherwise, paid on time. Minor repairs requested professionally. Until today. The next morning Miguel confirmed the notice was prepared. Standard Arizona law. 30 days. I made coffee, the strong Italian kind Maria loved, and allowed myself one moment of doubt. Was this too harsh? Then I remembered the gravel hitting my shins as Derek drove away. The lesson had to land. Some children only learn respect when consequences arrive at their own doorstep. The days after the funeral blurred into a quiet rhythm of paperwork and memories. I kept busy organizing tenant files in the garage, color-coded folders, maintenance logs, lease renewals. Emma had once interviewed me for a family history project. Grandpa, how much did you make starting out? $4.75 an hour in 1978, I told her. Derek overheard from the kitchen. Emma, don't pester Grandpa about money. It's rude. But she persisted. Smart kid. I shared about 70-hour weeks. Learning English from late-night TV. Saving every dime. Where did the money go? She asked. Derek tensed. That's enough questions. I answered anyway. Banks first, then properties. Investments. Derek stood up abruptly. Emma doesn't need the details. He never wanted the details because they threatened his narrative. The one where his father was the embarrassing immigrant who never made it. My hands, rough from decades of hammers and concrete, were proof of failure in his eyes. My 15-year-old pickup?
Poverty.
My careful shopping. Tuesday markdowns at the meat counter. Day-old bakery items, stubbornness. He didn't see the strategy behind it all. Hate waste. Maximize every dollar. Build quietly. Derek's wife Brooke was kinder. But even she bought into the story. At family dinners, she'd steer conversations away when I mentioned work sites. Enzo, tell us about that trip to Naples you took years ago. Safe topic. Never the duplex I renovated solo in 1992 that generated $1,200 monthly profit for 18 years before I sold for triple the purchase price. Never the commercial strip I bought in 2008 during the crash, fixed up during nights and weekends, now yielding steady commercial rents. The confrontation Derek initiated came 2 days later. He called while I was reviewing quarterly reports.
Dad.
We need to discuss your living situation. I was in the garage. Manila folder for Maple Grove open. What about it? You can't stay in that big old house alone. It's too much maintenance. Too expensive. My house, paid off since 2001. Current value $285,000. Property taxes $3,100 last year. Paid in full January. I'm managing fine, I said calmly. His voice took on that patient but exasperated tone he used with difficult clients.
Dad.
You're 68. Utilities, repairs, taxes. It's unsustainable. I saw your grocery receipt, $31 for the week. That's not healthy. He was right about the low number, but wrong about why. Strategic shopping isn't poverty, it's discipline. I explained I liked independence. He laughed. Tired. Independence?
Dad.
That ancient truck. Coupon clipping. Rotating the same 5 shirts. That's not independence. It's denial. He suggested moving in with them, convert the basement. The basement of the house I owned. Or a senior community in Scottsdale. $1,950 monthly. They'd help with $450. I let him talk, feeling the slow burn build.
Dad.
Your Social Security is what? Around $1,400? Pension maybe $900? We can bridge the gap. Close enough numbers. But missing the $2,750 from his own rent check. $3,900 average from the portfolio. Dividends rolling in. Derek, I said finally. Do you think I'm stupid? Long pause.
Dad.
Why would you say that? Just curious. Do you believe your old man never figured anything out? He laughed again. Same exhausted sound.
Dad.
I've seen how you live. I've seen the statements. He hadn't. Not the real ones. What if I told you I own things you don't know about? Like what? Lottery tickets. The only path he could imagine for his father to have money. Not lottery. Come over tomorrow. Bring Brooke. Bring Emma. There are papers I want to show you. I hung up. Some truths can't travel over phone lines. They need to be seen in person. Felt in the room. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the quiet house Maria, and I had filled with memories. Photos of Derek as a boy helping on job sites before he decided manual labor was beneath him. Report cards from college he thought scholarships covered. Medical bills I'd paid silently. My mistake had been allowing him to maintain the illusion. Respect isn't given freely sometimes. It has to be confronted into existence. The next morning Miguel called about an AC issue at Maple Grove. Tenant requested service. Likely new compressor. $850. Derek's house. Schedule it, I said. Use standard company letterhead. No personal names. Derek texted later.
Confused.
Property management is fixing our AC unprompted? Weird timing. I kept my reply neutral. Perhaps routine maintenance. But inside, the pieces were aligning. Derek arrived that afternoon, agitated, holding the management letter.
Dad.
About real estate. How does someone in construction build investments? The opening I'd waited decades for. I explained basics. Save aggressively. Buy distressed properties. Sweat equity. Compound rents into more purchases. He pressed. Have you owned rentals? A few. How many? I met his eyes. More than one. He pushed for details. I walked to the cabinet, pulled the Maple Grove folder, handed him the deed. His face drained of color. Dad, this is our address. Yes. You own our house.
Yes.
Bought it 6 years ago, 2 months before your lease started. He stared at the document, hands trembling. You've been my landlord the whole time? Through Desert Horizon? Yes. Why hide it? I wanted to see if you'd respect the man, not the myth. The room went still. Derek set the paper down carefully. What happens now? I slid the next document across the table. 30-day notice to vacate. Legal. Standard form. His hands shook harder.
Dad.
You can't be serious. Family doesn't abandon family on desert roads. Consequences follow. Derek left that afternoon in shock. The notice clutched like evidence of betrayal. I sat in the silence afterward, the weight of years pressing down. Part of me regretted the harshness. Maria would have wanted reconciliation without pain. But Maria was gone, and the lesson had been deferred too long. Respect, once eroded, requires demolition before rebuilding. The public reckoning came sooner than expected. Derek's firm hosted a quarterly client mixer at their sleek downtown Phoenix office. Glass walls, modern art, networking over craft beer and charcuterie. He'd invited me once before. I declined, knowing I'd be introduced as retired construction. This time I accepted. I arrived in a clean button-down, slacks, my one good blazer. Not flashy, but presentable. The crowd, insurance professionals, local investors, a few real estate agents, mingled discussing market rates and risk portfolios. Derek spotted me and introduced me stiffly. This is my father, Enzo. He's retired now. Retired. Again the past tense. Colleagues nodded politely. What line of work? One asked. Construction and development, I said. Derek interjected quickly. Mostly hands-on projects back in the day. The conversation moved on until Derek's boss, a sharp woman named Carla Richardson, discussed Phoenix rental yields. Undervalued properties with strong bones are gold if you can evaluate repairs accurately. A client agreed. Problem is most investors lack construction knowledge, and most contractors lack capital. I set down my coffee. Not always the case. Heads turned. Derek shifted uncomfortably. I continued quietly. Some of us do both. I've owned 11 rental properties here for years. Buy distressed. Renovate personally. Rent responsibly. Current portfolio around $2.1 million equity. Silence rippled. Carla stared. 11 properties? Total value. Derek tried signaling me to stop. I answered directly. The room buzzed.
Question floue. Roi Target?
Typical rehab costs? Tenant screening? I answered factually. 14 to 17% net yields. Sweat equity minimizing expenses. Rigorous vetting. Derek stood red-faced beside me as colleagues treated his embarrassing father like an expert. Carla pulled me aside later. Enzo, we'd love an introduction for clients seeking partners. Your experience bridges both worlds. I handed her a simple business card. Desert Horizon Management. Enzo Rossi. Principal. Derek watched.
Stunned. Dad.
Why here? Why now? They asked. I answered truthfully. Now they think. They think what they should have known years ago. That evening Derek called. Voice strained. About the notice. What about it? Brooks devastated. Emma's asking questions. Where do we go? That's for you to solve.
Derek.
You've got education. Income. Dad.
Please.
We're family. Family doesn't strand fathers after burying their wives. He went quiet. Then, I was grieving. Grieving clearly enough to discard me. The call ended without resolution. The sheriff served the formal notice at Derek's office the following Tuesday afternoon. He called me immediately, voice shaking.
Dad.
A deputy just handed me papers. Notice to quit. Yes. This is at my workplace. Arizona law requires proper service. Background noise. Colleagues murmuring. Carla asking what was wrong. Derek's voice rose. You own Desert Horizon? You're evicting us? You've been an excellent tenant otherwise. 30 days. He pleaded. Elaine's pregnant. Emma's school. New information, the pregnancy. Congratulations. Another grandchild. Apply for one of my other units if you wish. Market process. Application. Credit check. References. Full deposit. This is humiliating. Now you understand how the desert road felt. Derek didn't fight legally. Instead, he came to my garage Thursday evening. He looked around at the organized files. Before and after renovation photos. Maintenance logs. This is a real operation. 47 years. He picked up a tenant file. Mrs. Alvarez. Always pays early. Good tenants deserve stability. Derek had submitted an application through Miguel. He interviewed me. Gave Richardson as reference. Impressive. He doesn't know I'm your son?
No.
Merit-based. What if rejected? Find elsewhere. Derek studied renovation photos. You did all this work? Most of it. Hired specialists when needed. He set a wrench down carefully. Why never teach me? You weren't interested. Called it for people who couldn't do better. Derek winced. I was wrong. Arrogant. Yes. Can I learn now? Start by being a good tenant. Miguel approved Derek's application Friday. Derek called right away. He accepted, but mentioned owner-requested monthly inspections first year. I smiled to myself. Standard for new tenants.
Ensures proper maintenança.
You'll inspect my place? Miguel handles visits. I review reports. This feels pointed. It's professional. Derek sighed. We move next week. Brooks packing. Emma's excited about the adventure, but confused. The smaller two-bedroom at one of my Thunderbird complexes, $1,050 rent. Half their previous space. Moving day, I helped. Not out of pity, but landlord diligence. Derek carried boxes quietly. No complaints about downsizing from 2,200 square feet and a yard to apartment living. Brooke. Visibly pregnant. Directed placement of furniture. Emma explored the modest playground. Grandpa. Dad says you're teaching him business stuff. I nodded. If he wants. Derek met my eyes over a box.
Idò.
The ripple spread fast. Carla called Derek in for a meeting. Through industry contacts, I learned snippets. Your father built $2.1 million quietly while you lived in his property unaware? Derek admitted the abandonment story. Carla was direct. Fix this. Your father represents the success story clients crave. An ungrateful son damages the firm's image. Derek faced colleagues' subtle judgment. Insurance clients began inquiring about introductions to the Rossi portfolio. He deflected. Bridge burned. Word traveled in Phoenix real estate circles. 2 management firms reached out for potential partnerships. A bank offered favorable investment lines. A local business paper requested an interview. I agreed. The reporter met me at a completed renovation site. Secret to success? No secret. Save relentlessly. Sweat equity.
Patient compounding.
Good tenants. Biggest lesson? America judges by appearances, big house, luxury car. True success is invisible work that lasts. The article ran prominently. Immigrant builders' quiet empire. Enzo Rossi's 47-year journey from concrete mixer to multifamily investor. Photos showed me at a property entrance. Tools in hand. Expression steady. Derek read it. Called. Dad. The article. What did you think? I never knew you. Never ask. Correct. I'm asking now. Start with the lease signing Monday. Monday at Miguel's office. Derek signed. First month. Last month. $600 security. Total upfront $2,700. He wrote the check to Desert Horizon, knowing exactly who received it. Monthly inspection next week. Miguel reminded professionally. Derek nodded. Understood. For weeks of family mediation with Dr. Lena Vargas followed. Neutral ground. I expressed the need for respect, not for wealth. But as father. Derek admitted assumptions. Shame rooted in his own insecurities about making it differently. I thought success looked like offices and suits. I was blind to what you built with hands and patience.
Dr.
Vargas guided. What do each need going forward? Respect earned daily, I said. Patience while I learn, Derek replied. We committed to trying. Derek pays rent promptly now. He asks about cap rates, cash flow, tenant retention. More importantly, he asks how I'm sleeping, if I need help with anything personal. Emma visits often. Curious about Grandpa's buildings. Brooke's pregnancy progresses. They've chosen names honoring Maria. The smaller apartment feels like home because effort went into making it one. One evening, Derek stayed late in the garage, reviewing old ledgers.
Dad.
You chose foundation over degrees. Sacrificed resume for legacy. Yes. I'm proud to be your son. The words landed softly, without fanfare. No explosions left. Just quiet repair. Standing on that desert road changed everything. I reclaimed not just property, but dignity. Derek learned respect isn't inherited through blood, it's cultivated through accountability. The American dream isn't only wealth, it's the relationships forged when sacrifice meets recognition. My son finally sees the man behind the accent. The hands, the frugality. What remains is the question we all face. When the people we underestimate reveal their strength, are we humble enough to learn? Or do we repeat the abandonment, risking everything we thought was ours? The desert taught its lesson. Respect, once demanded and earned, rebuilds what was nearly lost.